The conference championship games are here, and we are here to break it down for you. It's the Audible, Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom talking about Joe Burrow in Arrowhead, or whatever they call it now, Bloom. And on the road, offense versus offense. I don't think we're going to get a game that is as good as Buffalo, Kansas City, because I don't know if we're ever going to see a game like that, Bloom. But that's going to be on a lot of people's minds when they watch this. Can we get some sort of repeat? Because the Bengals offensively can go toe-to-toe with Kansas City. They've proved it. Now it's on the road. So Joe Burrow company, we talk about the whole game at once. And then how does Kansas City respond to that? This one is fascinating. I feel with all the upsets last week that things are going to be favored for the favorites. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Lots to unpack here. And always we look back to that amazing week of football, amazing culmination of that week, Buffalo and Kansas City. But really the game we should be thinking about, Cecil, of course, is that first Cincinnati-Kansas City game. And it was a transformative game. I think those of us watching it at home also had a bit of our views transformed by the way that Cincinnati came back from that 28-14 deficit and not just scored and took the lead, but their defense made the stops to win that game. It was the game that made it so that week 18 didn't matter and they could rest their starters and they won the division. They didn't have to think they were going to bungle it at the very end. It was the game that took Kansas City out of the top spot. Not that it matters now because still Kansas City's going to host this game. But we can look back at that game, Cease, and I think that was also really the cementing from Zach Taylor, from Brian Callahan, that this is Joe Burrow's offense. This is going to be Joe Burrow's offense.
Right.
And in Kansas City, you can run on Kansas City, and Joe Mixon looks good. Joe Mixon looks spry. Joe Mixon looks strong. Joe Mixon looks fast, especially using him more in the passing game. So we'll see how much they sprinkle in Joe Mixon, but this is going to be Joe Burrow's game. And in the first game, great breakdowns, by the way, on The Athletic. Sheil Kapadia, remember him, Audible Ted
Love
Wynn.
him. Usually see him at the Senior Bowl. I don't know if I'll see him this year, but to love Sheil. Great friend. Dear
One
friend.
of the great football voices and great people out there. And look, in the first matchup, if we're talking about when Cincinnati has the ball, Cease, in the first matchup, it didn't matter. Cincinnati, Burrow against man, Burrow against zone. They were slicing and dicing the Chiefs' defense. And Burrow has been better against man than zone. You may see the Chiefs in this game do what teams were doing to them earlier in the year, right, Cease? Too high safety, play it safe, dare them to run more with Mixon, take the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands, make Joe Burrow be patient. Because especially when they were playing the man coverage, Burrow would get the ball out quickly to someone who had a good matchup, and it was working over and over and over again. So Burrow smartly taking advantage of those one-on-one matchups versus man. Maybe the Chiefs play more zone and induce more running and more safe decision-making from Burrow, and decision-making that takes longer because, remember, Cincinnati's offensive line, potentially a problem. Last week, certainly a problem.
Well, can Kansas City generate the middle pressure like Tennessee? I think the answer is yes. But
Chris
that's
Jones
the problem
can do it.
because
Jeffrey Simmons impression, yeah.
middle pressure makes every quarterback look mortal. And that's the thing. Like, edge pressure is one thing, step up in the pocket and throw it or whatever. Like, but middle pressure, it's right in your face. You can't do anything. And I don't want anything bad to happen to Joe Burrow. We already had to deal with his knee injury, and will there be designs to get the ball out faster? Will they try to soften him up more with the run? I know it's Joe Burrow's game, but can we please protect him?
Yeah. And again, getting the ball out quickly protects him. Last week, not a great indication. Brian Callahan didn't make adjustments in the second half. A lot of more long developing plays. However, again, Cease, we like doing this almost as a retroactive psychoanalysis, looking at these coaches and game plans, because in some ways it may make sense for the Bengals to try to piece together long, excruciating drives. It keeps Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce on the bench. It still attacks the weakness of this Kansas City defense when you're running the ball. Kansas City's probably going to allow them to get into a lot of 2nd and 5 type situations where the playbook can be wide open. And this certainly can be one where, as you mentioned, the inside pressure, Jerron Reed, remember, somebody that Seattle had to let go of before the season, Chris Jones, Melvin Ingram. Again, the team that you see in January is not the team that we saw week 1 in September. So some changes. Melvin Ingram, of course, a turning point. We're going to be watching Tyrann Mathieu, concussion protocol. Doesn't sound like it's a sure thing he's going to play. And maybe we left that out, cease of our backwards-looking analysis of Chiefs-Bills, that when Mathieu goes out early, 7th forward, New Orleans in the house, then that makes things easier for Josh Allen. If he's not out there, obviously it'll make things easier for Joe Burrow. And Mathieu can make those plays. Because, see, you look at the Bengals side of this, and they really cannot afford – here we go, we're all blowing up today. They cannot afford to have any turnovers, especially in their end of the field, right? The Bengals are going to need to play a near flawless offensive game, basically what Josh Allen did last week, something close to that. And they certainly have the players to do it. They have the mentality to do it. They have the experience to do it. When they have the ball, they know they can get it done. It's getting tougher, Cease, and then we're going to switch, and I know we're handling this all at once, but let's take the Kansas City side. On the Kansas City side here, what you have is, look what you've done, NFL. Patrick Mahomes and his daring do, we all enjoyed it. Big plays. Now, by playing these 2 high shells, by forcing him to be more patient, to be more discriminating with his choices, now you've created a super quarterback. He didn't attempt one pass more than 20 yards downfield last week, Cease. Not one. You also see him scrambling. Some great stuff, I think, from one of his trainers about he's actually faster as a curvilinear runner. What's up, Matt Waldman? Than a straight line runner. It kind of makes sense with the way his body's flexible and fluid.
Right.
Even as a backwards runner, there's this number. I have to find the thread, and I'll tweet it. I tweeted it out earlier in the week. Like, most athletes are 71% as fast running backwards. He's like 89% as fast. So this makes sense of why he can escape, why he can find those lanes. That's how things got going against Buffalo. So that's the real choice. Who's going to come up for the Bengals defense? And just like in the first matchup when they won, it's going to have to be individual plays by players stepping up, and they got it last week when they needed it.
And you just made him more dangerous, NFL. So
yeah.
Good job. You figured out Pat Mahomes until he figured you out. It's 3D chess, man, and he's better than you are. So Bengals defense, even at full strength, like even with the offense, and you want to go toe to toe with Pat Mahomes. Be ready to pay the price. Like my heart really wants to see Cincinnati, San Francisco bloom.
Sure.
Probably just because of old school. I'd like to see Cincy get it right. You know what I mean? Because I know Joe Montana over there getting the last second. What was that? John Taylor who got that touchdown, right? Yeah, I mean,
Stanford Jennings kickoff return, yeah.
And that was, look at you with the special teams drop. But, like, that was Cincinnati's game, man, in the Super Bowl. I would love to see it again. I would love to see kind of history, right itself or whatever. But, oh, boy, it's going to be hard to go away from Kansas City in this one.
It is, because on the Kansas City side, you have Tyreek Hill looked like he was in true prime form last week. His explosiveness, his acceleration, that's fearful. Travis Kelce, who you see the video coming out that he mentally engineered some of that 13-second amazing tying field goal drive there with his approach to the game, his understanding of the game. So if you're Cincinnati, you want to limit the big plays from these guys. You want to limit the big plays from Patrick Mahomes. Really, you want to try to do what Buffalo did last week. But then, unlike Buffalo, where Buffalo could only send Jerry Hughes and Greg Rousseau and Ed Oliver. And I mean, these are players that have lots of talent, but they weren't making that final play. Now, for Cincinnati, you have Trey Hendrickson. You have Sam Hubbard. You have, on early downs, you have DJ Reader, who's, I think, a real spark plug for this defense. And then you have this secondary. And see, if the Bengals are going to win, it's going to be more of these individual plays by guys like Mike Hilton, guys like Eli Apple, Jesse Bates. And They are making plays against Tennessee, but Patrick Mahomes isn't Ryan Tannehill. But if you can get a few individual plays, see 3 stops, right? Maybe like, and holding them to a field goal can count as a stop. Give me 3 stops if you're the Bengals. You've got a good chance here. The line is 7, which is just tantalizingly right where it should be.
Of course, yeah.
So, of course, the Bengals can win this game. They've done it already. Not in Kansas City, but you also have, as I mentioned earlier this week, I don't know how it's going to be for Kansas City to come off of that game that's just so emotionally draining. So emotionally draining. And the Bengals really have this imperviousness, right? I mean, they have been able to. This is how you change the history of a franchise,
It's
right?
Joe Burrow. It's Joe Burrow. It's Scar, man. It's like scars. That's nothing but experience.
This is
man.
my story. Yeah, this isn't the story of the Bengals. This is my story, and so it's going to be exciting from a football entertainment standpoint. This is about as good as we could have hoped for. I know there were people saying like, "Oh, I hate Big 12 football. I hate that style of college football." But just for a couple of minutes at the end of the game, I loved it. Well, you're probably going to get it for most of the game in this one. I think this is going to be a game, as the Chiefs know. Keep this in mind as we're watching this game. See, so we've seen the Chiefs come back from 24-0 in the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. And we've seen the Bengals come back from 28-14 against the Chiefs this season. So no margin is safe in this game. At no point in this game, here's what is going to happen. Is this the classic script, Cecil, where if a team gets ahead and they start to relax and feel like maybe they've got control of the game, that's what opens things up for the opponent. So this could be a game that has 2 or 3 individual games and swings in it, and it's going to be quarterback and passing and individual skill play based. This is definitely a get your popcorn game, and it might be just like last week, a who has the ball last game.
Yeah, who has the ball last? And you said it's like name that tune, Bloom, because you said give 3 stops, including field goals. Might be 2.
Maybe. I mean, if you can put together long drives, and this is the other tactical side of this. Although, if you're Zach Miller, if you're Zach Taylor.
Zach Brown,
lots of Zachs. If you're Zach Taylor, really, I think what you see the clip where Burrow says, yeah, the headset went out. Like, oh.
Yeah, and he's like, good thing all those plays I called worked.
They worked, right? And it was already a running joke before that Taylor would tell Burrow, don't pretend like the headset's not working. But if you're Zach Taylor, you do understand, and we're going to talk about this with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford too. You do understand, like, look, it's as far, we're going to go as far as you can get us, and you've gotten us pretty far already. So that's how we get to this point. But you would like to see maybe some more nuance, because if you put together 6, 7, 8-minute drives, then you do make it so you only need 2 stops instead of 3. You shorten the game. I think because of the way Patrick Mahomes is playing, because of how many times the Bengals, speaking of field goals, have had to settle for field goals. On the flip side, if you're Zach Taylor in this game, you're very loath. If it's 4th and 4 or less, you're not kicking a field goal, man. You're not going to beat Patrick Mahomes kicking field goals. So we'll see if Zach Taylor, just like Sean McDermott in the last 13 seconds, to beat the Chiefs, you don't just have to outplay them, you have to outcoach them, or you have to coach. You have to affirmatively coach. We'll see if Zach Taylor says, go get him, Joe, or they have a game plan that can increase their chances of winning.
I'm going to take Kansas City begrudgingly, Bloom. Although I did say this on the Denver airwaves. And yes, I'll talk about Nathaniel Hackett at the end of the show. I already did a YouTube short on it on our YouTube channel, so check us out. But Bloom, there's one reason why I really want Kansas City to win the Super Bowl. Do you know what that reason is? It is so that Andy Reid will retire and Eric Bieniemy will actually get a head coaching job. Yeah, because he's been interviewed 9 times. 9 times he's had the interview for a head coaching job.
Yeah.
And has not gotten one. I know. He interviewed poorly or whatever. The douchier insiders would say, I'm using air quotes, I talk to agents. I'm an insider. Oh, okay. So, always rooting for EB. We'll see if they can pull it off, and it's one of those games, Bloom, where I'm happy no matter who wins. I just want good football, and I believe we are going to see potentially great football in this game.
Yeah, I think so. The only real variable here is that this could be where the Bengals are just too small. Again, having to settle for a lot of field goals in the first 2 games. And you have to play mistake-free football on both sides of the ball, and you have to also help yourself with your coaching and the positions you put your team in. Are the Bengals up to that? We'll see. But it's invaluable to have played this team just a month ago and beaten them in conditions down 14 points that are adverse. But yeah, you got to pick Kansas City. Of course, you're picking Kansas City. It's more interesting to talk about it maybe in terms of the spread, because if you're taking Cincy in the points, you're saying Cincy's going to definitely hang around this game and make the Chiefs sweat. Whereas on the Super Bowl hunt last year in the AFC title game, certainly in 2020, 2019, except for against the Patriots. I mean, this is a team that buries their competition in the playoffs. That's what makes what the Bills did so special.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't even put it in perspective. The Chiefs are on a postseason run right now that like we've never seen before. Even the 70s Steelers, the 80s 49ers, the Cowboys of the 90s never did anything like this. How many home games in a row, Cease, in the playoffs have they hosted? Like 9 or 10? Something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, they only lost to the Patriots basically because the Patriots won the toss in overtime. So it's monumental for a team to be able to stop this kind of a run. And I'm afraid, not yet Bengals. Maybe one day.
They might even be a year ahead, Cincinnati.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because Cincinnati's where Buffalo should be. So Buffalo's kind of on track, and Cincinnati leapfrogged them. So we got a great one.
Yeah.
By
and
the
meanwhile,
way,
there's the Chargers waiting for the bus.
Hey, what do we do here? Do we do it, or do you?
You're
do
there
it?
to see the bus schedule. Is this bus going to show up?
I mean, we're here, right? Anyway, Bloom, you were talking about the GPS data for Pat Mahomes. Did you see his heart monitor data?
Oh no! Wow, I'm gonna get the brainwaves. Now we're cooking.
When Josh Allen was on the field, Pat Mahomes' heartbeat was faster.
Yeah.
When Pat Mahomes was on the field, his heartbeat was slower.
Yeah, because he's in control. Because when he's on the field, he's in control of what's happening. Mm-hmm. Of course. There is definitely a thing.
Ice, man. Just like Diego says, ice in his veins.
See, probably in our lifetimes, they will start to be able to quantify this kind of stuff. When you say the game happens slower for Patrick Mahomes. I think, and heartbeat's part of that, right? Heartbeat, breathing. We can get into meditation. See, so we can get into stuff that people have known for thousands of years about the connection between our mind, our body, and our soul, and how we can exercise some sense of, if not control, harnessing or focusing.
Manifesting. I can't wait till we can do that podcast.
Yeah. And I think that Mahomes, it's just clear that the game happens slower for him. And much like the Matrix elucidated visually, it gives him cracks to make things happen that only he sees and can exploit. The Gregory Rousseau play from the beautiful, is there a nickname for that game yet, Cease? We need him. We need one. Where he was coming out, and Cease, it isn't even that it's one thing when a quarterback can pump fake or do something to manipulate the defender, but Mahomes, it's like in Kerouac, Dean Moriarty, like driving through the intersection, knowing that people are going to break and not hit him, so just flying through the intersection. Mahomes understood that Rousseau was going to make himself big because that's what you do as a defender, so he went sidearm and threw it at waist level, and it happened almost simultaneously because he anticipates these things. He's processing at a high speed while he's perceiving everything at this low speed that allows him to do things that only he can do, but it's starting to get, if I can confess as a football fan, it's starting to remind me of like Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, because you're talking about Cincinnati, San Francisco, where you feel the sense of powerlessness and frustration of any and all opposing teams of those quarterbacks, that you can do everything right and they still beat you. You just want to root against those quarterback seats, I guess, because you want to feel like the outcome isn't as inevitable as it feels.
Yeah. So many ways. You're picking the Chiefs, then?
Yeah, I have to.
Okay.
I want the Bengals. I will be pouring out as much Cease on the day that Ben Roethlisberger announces retirement. Let's just say I'm going to be very emotional for this game, as emotional as I've been for any Steelers game since at least the Steelers-Jags playoff debacle. There's Nathaniel Hackett's best moment, by the way, Cease. Go watch that game if you want to see Nathaniel Hackett's masterpiece.
Right.
So yeah, let's go Bengals, but reality's reality.
Yeah. Reality is reality. And well, William C. See, and it's like Bengals fans are so deserving. Because if you were a Bengals, imagine if the Lions were ever good one day. But right, I'm thinking of Joe
50s.
Goodberry.
There are probably some people that remember the Lions' heyday in the 50s still.
Sure. I'm thinking of like Joe Goodberry though, right? And like you just think of Bengals. If you are, I'm a Bengals fan. You're not doing that because they got Joe Burrow, right? You're doing that because you're probably from the area, but you love that team. And William C says in the chat room, like, we're a few years ahead, but it's never been a better time to be a Bengals fan. And you want to, as a football fan, you want to reward that fan base.
Yeah.
Just being good for you guys because you love them.
And again, it's one of those things, my season-ending rant about how the owners and the NFL exploit the emotional connections that football create between human beings, right? Like you said, it's a lot of times because you're from the place. It's watching games with your family. It's like when you're 6 and Christmas and you open up one of your presents and it's like a beanie, like of your local team. You know what I mean? It's identification of like your life and you identify with it. And it's that group shared experience with all those other people. And I'm reminded of this because with Sean Payton next year, Sean Payton next year.
Dallas
stepping away. He's retiring. It's good. Get some rest, man. Mental health is important. But in New Orleans with Sean Payton moving on, there's a lot of reflection back to the Super Bowl win, of course, and really just the whole era of the shared experience of the Sean Payton era of the Saints. And like you said, the fans that are still sticking around with the Bengals, because you don't hear many Lions fans. You hear people that say, I used to be a Lions fan. Right. But it's the connection with the area. And I know a lot of people that love the Cincinnati area. We got Dr. Gene, although he's not a Bengals honk. We got John Norton. We got Chris Allen on our staff. And through the thick and thin, and there's been a lot of thin, like you said, Cease, you want to see those fan bases get rewarded. That's why it hurts for the Bills fans. It hurts. It hurts me. I'm hurt. Mm-hmm. I'm not even just hurt. I'm not even 1/100th hurt as an actual Bills fan, but I'm hurting for you. But it is a good time. They're not just happy to be there, which is going to give us a good game, but at the same time, it is just a little ahead of schedule.
All right. San Francisco and the LA Rams. Spoiler alert. I think this is the Rams. I think the NFL wants it to be the Rams. That may be a conversation for another time, Bloom. But it's like, obviously, with my connection with the 49ers and so many friends on that staff, like I'm rooting for you, San Francisco. But how do you overcome, and I guess you could say this for both quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
Because Matthew Stafford's played some dog trash games. And, well, Jimmy Garoppolo tends to have those Garoppolo type of plays. So we can get into it. How healthy is Debo with the knee? I mean, just go back and watch Debo Samuel in the last game, and you see just full effort. You know, guys fighting, the guys bleeding, the guys hurting, the aches and pains and everything. And he's just putting it out on the line, man. It's great to see that. So, we can get into all the auxiliary. We could talk about Cooper Kupp, but we could talk about the stars and everything that is revolving around this game. Von Miller and Aaron Donald. But how do these teams overcome quarterbacks that you don't know what kind of day it's going to be?
Yeah. Well, this one has a little different in terms of layers approach because these teams play each other twice a year. And we saw a very stirring game, again, down here in New Orleans. People very interested watching Week 18. The Rams were up, 20-3 in that game or something like that. They are leading by a touchdown. They only need to convert a 3rd and 7. Sean McVay with 1:40 left. Sean McVay doesn't even call a pass. He calls a run. Cryptically says after the game, I really thought 3 runs was going to get a first down there. Okay. Even though they run the ball like 2 yards a carry. That gets the 49ers in the playoffs. That gets Saints out of the playoffs. Rams go from 2 seed to the 4 seed. Doesn't matter anyway, because, again, here they are hosting the NFC Championship game. But there's layers here because Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan undefeated against Sean McVay, 6-0. And they've won the last 6. So certainly on paper, Cease, this isn't just like sweeping the season series. In so much as this is a matchup between head coaches, Shanahan owns this matchup. The 49ers coaches own this matchup. You mentioned a couple of the X factors. There's Garoppolo, and they did not win. Sound familiar? Here they are on the verge of maybe going to the Super Bowl, not winning because of Garoppolo, but he's their quarterback, and he's had some success. This offense has had some success. In the last matchup, the Rams really focused more on stopping the run than stopping the pass. But Garoppolo made the plays when he had to at the end of the game. Of course, you mentioned Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. I mean, again, they have difference makers. Brandon Ayuk can be a difference maker. Elijah Mitchell has taken over this backfield. And the Rams have seen this offense enough, but this shows, I think, and it's complicated, but everybody has mastered it, that the beauty of the Shanahan offense is a lot of the same personnel sets and formations, different plays. So you can never really truly be prepared for it. You have to just process everything validly, react validly. If Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't make those big mistakes, that can keep the 49ers in this game. Trent Williams is a little banged up. Let's see what happens there. So it's a Shanahan game. Shanahan with the joystick of Garoppolo. But see, when we switch, and of course for the Rams, talk about those individual players for the Bengals. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller. Oh yeah, they have Von Miller. Even Leonard Floyd can make game-turning plays, and you're trying to limit that. But when we switch it back, so it's a Shanahan story when the 49ers have the ball, Cease. When the Rams have the ball, it's a Stafford story.
And what kind of story do we get from Matthew Stafford? And, think about Odell Beckham Jr. on this journey, right?
Right.
Because, an effigy for Browns fans, asks our guy Forest City. And it's like, think of how ODBs come from the Browns to this, from superstardom to the Browns to this, and one game away from the Super Bowl. You're not going to want to let your quarterback down, but is he just going to let you down? Because again, Stafford at moments will just have throws where you're like, where are you throwing? Why did you do that?
Why?
And it's not even just placement, it's decision, which is weird because you consider Stafford and, high intelligent football player and all those sorts of things. It's not Jared Goff out there. Like, okay, but there's sometimes some boneheaded moves come in for Stafford. Do you try to out 49 the 49ers if you're Sean McVay? Nothing's worked. So what can they do to make it work?
Well, they've got to put the game on Matthew Stafford's shoulders, quite simply. Cam Akers, 2 fumbles last week, 4 fumbles. Isn't that amazing, Cease? What a story. Matthew Stafford, and this is why players pick their spots, right? Matthew Stafford goes to the Rams, never even had a chance to picture himself playing in a conference championship game as a Lion. Here he is in his first year with the Rams. Here he is. And this is an unknown. What does Matthew Stafford do at this highest of heights? It's an unknown. Going into the playoffs, he was playing terrible. His coach was trying to insulate his team from the quarterback's effect on the game. And then he comes in the playoffs, and he's playing outstanding football, lights out football, which indicates that maybe this opportunity, he understands the gravity of making it this far and being able to play in your home stadium, although that's like an asterisk, right? Because the 49ers actually had more fans there in Week 18 and were louder and had more of an effect on the game than the Rams fans. Now they're trying to limit the ticket sales by zip code or something like that. See here? I don't know. It's not
that was debunked, or they changed that, right?
I don't know. It's not going to work anyway. They're just the Rams don't inspire a lot of that same for whatever reason, right? Because with the Rams, it is even growing up in LA. If you grew up in LA, you're a Lakers fan. If there's teams that create bonds, the Dodgers. If you have a bond because you have a shared experience of growing up in a place, it's not the Rams. There's no emotional connection to the Rams in LA. So even if they host the Super Bowl, who knows? It's not going to be a lot of diehard Rams fans. Anyway, this all just circles back to Matthew Stafford. And of course, the 49ers, and partially because you can't run on the 49ers. 49ers running defense, rush defense. Cam Akers is back. He's spry, but I don't know if he's going to have much of an effect in this game as a runner. Maybe as a receiver, he can get downfield. But you are looking at Cooper Kupp and especially Odell Beckham. Like you said, Cecil, what about his journey? There are going to be plays. The 49ers have been holding up okay with their secondary, but that's obviously where the weakness is in their defense, and the Rams have the players to exploit that. It's just going to come down to Matthew Stafford's execution. See, I think we're going to look back on this game And if the 49ers win, it will be because Stafford didn't execute. And if the Rams win, it will be because he did. And it's his story. And that's not a story we've talked about a lot this year. It's kind of gone under the radar. Stafford, not exactly a big showy personality. He's not like Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, we don't all have this great grasp of Matthew Stafford as a person. He kind of keeps to himself, So this is an interesting one to be in on as we watch this divisional matchup for the NFC title game. And it's very volatile, Cease. I mean, I think this game could be a blowout either way. I think this game is going to be really determined by players seizing the moment.
Seizing the moment with Matthew Stafford, who looks like a different version of Sigmund Bloom. I'd say young Sigmund Bloom, but you're young. You're young. You're young.
Early 30s.
You let the hair grow out and you get a little scruffy. Like, you clean up, baby. You look like you're 25.
Yeah, I used to. Mark Folletti, where are you, man? Get me cleaned up again.
Makeup. We wore makeup together. That's for sure. And with Stafford, the adversity that he's come through, wife with the brain cancer. Is that right? It was brain cancer. Yes. So, and the triumph and the places that he's come from, because we remember in college, he was a below 60% passer.
Yeah.
And that was Georgia. You can say that for Josh Allen, like he wasn't 60% passer. Yeah, that's Wyoming. He's throwing to Tanner Gentry. God bless Tanner Gentry, who I think the Bills signed to a futures deal.
Yeah.
But anyway, Stafford did it at Georgia. So we had plenty of doubts and question marks. And then the Lion can't take the Lions over the hump. Well, he could hoist the Lombardi Trophy, which would be a great story for him. We'll see who rises to the occasion. I see a blowout one way if it is a blowout. Not necessarily both ways, but what the hell do I know? I picked 4 games last week and I got 3 of them wrong. But it's upset week last week. This week it's chalk. This week it's Kansas City and LA. I think we get like 51-50. We get a Van Halen. I know the halftime show is Eminem and Eminem's so anti-establishment now that he's part of it. But anyway, Eminem and Dr. Dre and all the greatness from hip hop of years past. But it should be Sammy Hagar because it's going to be 51-50 Rams and Chiefs.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. A Rams-Chiefs rematch of that amazing. Was it in Mexico City, that game?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Samson Ekubom, right? Wasn't he the star of the game? Anyway, that would be great. Used to be old Battle of Missouri. You got to pick the Rams here for one reason and one reason only. You have now the 49ers going on the road and beating the Rams, the Cowboys, and the Packers in order. I mean, it's just asking so much of this team to keep this going. It's just at some point, they playing for your life and the adrenaline of mortality, it does wear you down. And the Rams, I think, maybe last week learned something about how they have to finish a game, and they'll need it. I think this probably will be a close-ish game. I think the 49ers will make the Rams sweat, but the difference between Stafford and Garoppolo will probably be the difference, assuming Stafford actually doesn't play like Garoppolo.
Yes. Okay. There you go. So we've got Rams and Chiefs, and let's go. All right. Sigmund, it's a busy day.
Yeah.
Here in Denver.
Yeah, talk about it.
Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett's the head coach of the Broncos, and he's the anti-Vic Fangio. Hey, Vic Fangio, how often do you get an interview in your mind?
Every day.
How many more times are we going to play this drop?
Every day.
That's right. Well, Nathaniel Hackett is the head coach. It's good news for the Broncos, and it's part 1. Part 2 is getting Aaron Rodgers. And, I understand people say, well, the Green Bay, they have to trade him and they'll trade him wherever. Okay, Adam Schefter said this, and I agree with it. There was a trade last year with Aaron Rodgers. The trade was, I'm going to show up and play. You send me where I want to go next year, okay? Is that a deal? So, gentleman's agreement, whatever you want to call it. It's all about the people, right? Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers. And probably Devontae Adams as well. So, I think that will energize the fan base to be sure. but Hackett without Rodgers, because you have to think either, Rodgers, you make a run for a couple, 3 years and then whatever, and then Hackett afterwards, a 4-year deal. And people say, well, coaches don't play in that final year. Okay, well, then it's a 3-year deal. Well, who's going to get signed to a 3-year deal? Probably Aaron Rodgers. So you make a run and you see what you can do. Hackett without Aaron Rodgers took Blake Bortles within one pass of the Super Bowl, built on, I know, Saxonville, but also was built on Leonard Fournette. So I think, and this is what I said in the short, Bloom, this is great news for Javonte Williams. Because Melvin Gordon's a free agent, just whatever, get him out of here. He doesn't need to be here. Go draft somebody, whatever. But Javonte in that Leonard Fournette role that he had with Jacksonville that year, they went to the AFC title game. Yes, please. And then whatever receivers they keep, because they might trade Jerry Jeudy, they might trade Cortland Sutton, they might trade Tim Patrick, they might trade a combination. In addition to trading Drew Lock, maybe to get Aaron Rodgers via trade. People say there will be a sign and trade with Devontae Adams. They have to franchise tag him. You have to have the money when you place the tag. Green Bay is $40 million over the salary cap. So how do you have the money? Not exactly sure. So, Devontae would be a unrestricted free agent. Sure, they could tag him, but they don't have any money. What was the old Eddie Murphy, Bloom? You ain't got no ice cream. You got no ice cream. Yeah, and Green Bay, it's going to be a little painful there. It's going to be a little painful for you. I'm reminded of Martin Lawrence in Blue Streak, which is a highly underrated movie, when he looks over to Dave Chappelle and he's like, this is going to hurt a little bit. And then whack, whack. What did the 5 fingers say to the face? Slap. Well, that's what's going to happen. Sorry, Green Bay. In Denver, this is a good hire for you. It's a motivated coach who uses Star Wars references and the Gold Zone meetings that are legendary with his players, and also kind of sounds like Will Ferrell. Go watch the clips. And dear friend Nikki Javala from the Washington Post did a great story on Hackett, I think in the fall, that has gone kind of mini viral anyway. So read that piece, just do some studying. But this is good news for Denver, Bloom.
Yeah, well, they got their guy, I think. That this was the first choice. So in so much as you believe your organization, franchise is being rational, they get their first choice. That can be a good thing. It sets off a domino. Matt Eberflus to Chicago. Maybe Byron Leftwich to Jacksonville. Maybe not. Brian Dable to Miami. Maybe.
Why not the Giants?
That's just what the buzz is. Okay.
So the buzz from Miami is Vance Joseph. Not only does Greer loves him, Stephen Ross loves him.
I hear you. I'm just telling you, I'll pull it up while we're talking here in real time. But I'm going, of course, by our dude C.K. Parrott, who was surprised that Dan Quinn pulled out. And Rap Sheet says the player are going to have second interviews next week. Flurry of activity, no rush. And Bobby Thompson says that Dable is high on to a Tagovailoa. Dable and McDaniel is how CK Parrott has it. So I don't know. Intrigue as always, but I think that you can see Cease here that the Broncos were the first domino, and you want your team to be the first domino, right? You don't want your team to be having to react to what other teams are doing and go to plan B and plan C. This was plan A?
Nah, Quinn was plan A.
Ooh. Why did Quinn want to go back to Dallas then?
When everything first started, let me say that. And the thing that I appreciate about George Payton is he let the process work. Trust the process. Because initially I was worried this was Dan Quinn and 9 other guys. That's what I was worried. The Broncos interviewed 10 head coaching candidates. And the fact that Hackett, and what's funny, because George Payton doesn't talk to anybody. So he doesn't talk to Mike Kliss. He doesn't talk to Troy Rank. Doesn't talk to me. He does talk to Nick Ferguson. But Nick doesn't say anything. Nick doesn't say anything because George discovered Nick years ago with the Bears, by the way. So it was funny, Bloom. After Hackett's first interview, what the insiders were saying? I heard he didn't interview well.
Oh.
Well, he got the job. So, and where he wanted to go? Because Denver has great steakhouses, right? Usually guys go to Elway's. Vic Fangio ordered a hamburger
Yeah.
when they went to Elway's. And he didn't own a suit, by the way. Had to borrow a pair of khaki pants. Anyway, do you know where Nathaniel Hackett chose to go here in Denver? I wish it would have been Little Anita's, then we would have had our little thing.
Right.
He went to Los Dos Portillos.
Los Dos. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, Los Dos with the tamales. He ordered tamales, reported by Mike Kliss.
That's good.
And I had a tamale from there yesterday. I broke my soda diet because I'm not supposed to have tamales, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to have a tamale. Down 50 pounds. I'm going to have a tamale.
Good, man. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I think that even if it wasn't, like you said, Cecil, it's letting the process play out. Dan Quinn telling everyone he's going back to the Cowboys. Now, by the way, real-time stuff here. Saints requesting an interview with Byron Leftwich. Saints also requesting an interview with Aaron Glenn, coming from their staff to be the defensive coordinator to the Lions. That's maybe more continuity there. So, yeah, the wheel's turning, man. The Game of Thrones, right? The plate tectonics of the NFL in motion right now. And you'll feel little rumbles under your feet, the Shrine Game and the Senior Bowl, too.
Yeah. So just keep your phone on, Bloom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep your phone on. Anyway, that's a wrap for this show. We'll have Coaching Carousel show. We'll have Shrine Game show. We'll have Senior Bowl show. So, yeah, next week, Bloom probably hit up with a news and notes show as well. So, yeah, we might be doing 3 shows next week, or maybe just 2. One for news, head coaching stuff, and one for Shrine and Senior. So we'll talk about it. We'll discuss it. We'll text back and forth and all those sorts of good things. In the meantime, do all those YouTube things, which is like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We are the Audible. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.